Welcome back, and today I'm going to be talking about fasting. I'm doing this outside today because, well, today was just like this massive downpour. Um, and I don't know, I feel like rain for me has a lot of different meanings, and one of them is a type of I want to just sit in the rain. I don't know how to make meaning of it other than that I think it's just part of my temperament. I have a very melancholic temperament where I just sometimes like to feel sad. So it's like a lamenting part of me that's almost like it's trying to draw itself into the environment, and I don't know. So I just felt I was going to go with that today, and so here I am filming outside. And I want to talk about fasting. So this is kind of something that we've been talking about where it's good to kind of step into what your kind of natural inclinations are and just see where they take you. And that kind of is going to help you create meaningful meaning for yourself about your existence and your reality. So, with fasting, typically we can say that it's a sort of intrinsically driven way of holding ourselves to account. So, it's kind of like building self accountability for something. And typically, the most common idea that we can relate to is healthy diets, weight maintenance, or strength training. And this is common amongst all of us, regardless of any walk of life, I imagine, as an adult. And the practice is usually something that involves a methodology that we engage in because we know that in the past it's been tested. And if we kind of follow um, like these certain behaviors in a certain way for this amount of time, we're going to see results. And although they're usually visibly discernible results, we don't always see how people feel about themselves. Like sometimes they might look happier, they might carry themselves with this different kind of confidence, but that overall sense of well-being is usually very intrinsic, and it's very difficult to kind of communicate. Other than that, people kind of see it, and you can talk about it, but to actually bottle it up, and kind of communicate it, people kind of say you should try this, and then you'll kind of get a feel for this is how I feel now. And this can be analogous to fasting. So typically, fasting is a form of refraining from food and drink. And in Islam, it's usually for a set amount of hours during the day for a duration of a month. So it's usually from before sunup to sundown. And it's usually once a year. So this idea is it has a lot of benefits. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it is like a religious belief and practice that is consistent across all religions in different ways. So I think in Christianity, I think it's Lent, where they pick one thing that they really enjoy doing and they give it up for 40 days. So it's almost like the Buddhist approach to building a type of healthy attachment to something because it um, sorry, I'm going to try that again. It's a way of building healthy attachment to something and being able to know that I can remove it from myself without it impacting me in any kind of fundamental way. So, and the only way to know that we can do this is to voluntarily give it up beforehand and then see, to what degree am I really, really reliant on this to kind of help me in kind of a well being sort of way. So, and the argument is that this actually does alleviate suffering because too much attachment to any one thing can be a way that we um, unintentionally become kind of over reliant on it without understanding that we should be working on an intrinsic value of ourself without putting too much meaning into anything outside of ourselves. So this is a very metaphysical idea of like self-worth, that outside of anything that we are or anything in our environment, we as human beings are worthy. So um, so the idea is to hold yourself back from something that you habitually indulge in, and then try to wonder about what the metaphysical benefits are for that experience for you. So I wanted to kind of wonder with you about why this might be a good thing. So think in your mind about a scenario, even like just a movie, where somebody who has really deep love for something and then loses it, what their um, consequent reaction usually is, and how they are in the world. So I had watched a series on YouTube, I think it was Netflix actually, called Dead to Me. And near, I think, the end of the series, there's a mother who lost her son. And even though she had a set of twins, the one that she lost was somehow more dear to her heart. And it just devastated her. Like she just couldn't kind of come back from it. And so the idea behind fasting is it's kind of a way to remind yourself that you need to reinforce that anything in the world is sort of out of your possession. Like you have no real control over it sustaining itself for you. And so you shouldn't try to constantly derive happiness from it or kind of a sense of who you are from it, which is really difficult to do. It's not an easy task because we derive meaning about ourselves regarding what it is that we value, right? Um, so if we try that on, like for example, if I'm not a mother, I'm not a parent, I don't have a relationship, but if I was to say I am going to assume, for example, that my mother passed away or my sibling passed away, because I am already kind of relying on the fact that if we rely on something and are almost not giving ourselves a sort of backup plan for how we might be able to cope without it, that sudden kind of jarring effect on our life can be kind of like shock. It can actually, and as we know of shock, it can lead to death because basically um, the gravity of the impact of like our brain almost unable to align itself with the reality has an effect on our organs, and it causes our blood to kind of rush into our organs to kind of protect basically everything that's vital to keep us alive. And if we don't remedy that, we can die. So um, basically what I'm trying to say is we shouldn't assume that we are strong or that we can kind of overcome anything. We always have to kind of keep our human fallibility in check. So the Buddhist approach to doing that is to preemptively almost take things out of your life that might be meaningful for you. So think, for example, of a mother who's lost her child, right? So she derives a lot of meaning from that. And as you know, like you watch any YouTube video, you'll see the joy that emanates from that interaction, right? Like um, you see it on their faces, and you also hear it in their tone, like the parents and the children. And now imagine a mother who is building, or a father who's building their entire life around this child, and it's like this lifelong dream that they had, or any such scenario, and they already have kind of like hopes and dreams for their child and them together in the future. Um, and all of a sudden that's taken away. If you haven't already kind of decided um, that I have some kind of alignment with the universe in a kind of meaningful way, that we have to deal with loss because nothing is permanent. We aren't actually entitled to anything. Like sometimes people will say, why do I deserve this? And they'll ask these like kind of questions where, I mean, they make sense because it's almost like I did everything right. Like why am I having all these meaningful things taken away from me? Like everything I care about's just suddenly gone. And if you go back to some of the videos that I've mentioned before with how to deal with the ups and downs of life, this is kind of always going to go back to the story of Job. It's almost to say that the universe is meant to have these ups and downs to help us build resilience and help us understand how to accommodate and how to deal with change. Because if we, by nature, are just kind of set on a assumption that life should be constantly steady, we're not going to be able to survive, because just the nature of life is diversity and it's constant progress and it's movement in every direction. And without preparing for that, it's almost like you're going to almost find yourself like a very passive agent in the world. And it's for your own instinct. If you think of like survival, it's not very helpful for you. So back to the example about loss. If pre having this child, or like even like if you were early on in your life, like 18 or something, and you've decided, I want to think about these questions, it almost helps you identify that anytime I do feel moments of joy, or anytime I do have these moments of gratitude because everything is just aligning really well, take a moment to be grateful, just to feel that gratitude. Because in spite of what can happen that's like a tragedy or that brings grief, if we remember to be grateful, in the Quran, God promises, I will increase you. Like I'll prevent you from having to deal with those sudden impacts that might actually devastate you. And in knowing that, if we are met with those kind of scenarios where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with tragedy right now and I don't know how to prepare for it, I don't know how to get through it. If we are patient, then the more patient we are, the more easy it will be to bounce back. So we will allow ourselves to grieve, because people grieve in different ways, and they need to be allowed to know that there's no set way for grief and there's no really time limit. So allowing yourself that, and then knowing that things can improve and will improve, almost helps us from sinking into despair. So knowing that, I think, in any kind of scenario we find ourselves, just take a moment to just have that kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for this, and that's all it is. And then you'll find yourself kind of like increasing with the blessings that you find yourself having in life. And I, I think that's pretty much everything for fasting. And basically, don't assume that if you do take on a religion because you want to just embody it holistically, that it has to be a very strict and very conservative way of existing. Assume an easy approach. Like make your life easy. Don't necessarily change anything other than the fact that the way you think is going to be different, and maybe the way you talk, because your beliefs are changing. And then maybe just once a year, if you want to fast for a month or just a week, or for Lent, a little bit longer than a month, if you want to spend some time and hold yourself back from something that you typically enjoy, that's a spiritual practice that will enrich you. And then you can actually decide how holding off of something that you really enjoy helped you, or kind of made an impact on your life. And then once you record that, you'll decide, and probably you'll understand, that the freedom that you have to engage with pleasures or pleasurable activities in life is something that we take for granted. Like, it's almost like there are parts in the world where not everybody has the freedom to have a social life, for example, because maybe it's just like a really violent context, and there's curfews and such things. So knowing that helps us kind of appreciate that we do have a lot to be thankful for, and the more thankful we are, I mean, we can't really lose. And so this goes back, just to kind of piggyback off the last video with cycles of rebirth, is that because fasting is kind of like a natural way of holding your body to a less stressful situation. It's almost like not eating gives our metabolism a break. So it's not really working on digesting or breaking down anything, and then kind of moving the molecules or the nutrients in any particular place in our body. It actually frees up that energy that is usually set aside for metabolism to repair. So it's a good way to imagine all the restorative characteristics that we can derive from fasting just for your body. And the mind's the same way. So we will learn that we can learn and unlearn as we go through life. Sometimes people will argue that, I'm just set in my ways. I've been doing this for so long now that I just can't see myself changing. I mean, that could be something that you want to allow for yourself, because you want to kind of give yourself a break. But understand that the brain is plastic. Like, it's able to grow, and it's able to regenerate in so many ways. I don't know about Alzheimer's, like I have to draw a limit to this, but I've tested with myself that I have been able to overcome a lot of habits just by thinking about it and then practicing it, and then gradually they just fade away, and I'm not as almost sort of reliant on them. Or it's kind of like an addiction feedback, where I need the stimulus and then I get the pleasure and then I continue doing it. I don't know how to pull back from it. So give it a try and see how it can help you.